Yesterday, the United States made a fatal strategic error. To save the dollar, they smashed the paper price of silver down to $83. They thought they were crushing the bull market. They thought they were painting a technical breakdown that would scare you out of your positions. But what they actually did was put the world's most strategic asset on a clearance sale for the Chinese Communist Party. While you were panic selling, China was panic buying. Because they know something you don't. The price of silver in Shanghai is effectively $34 higher than the price in New York. There is a giant sucking sound coming from the east. Can you hear it? It is the sound of a vacuum sucking every ounce of physical silver out of the United States and flying it to Beijing. The West isn't crashing, it is being drained. And by the time the regulators in Washington realize what happened, the vaults will be empty. This is veiled wealth. And today, we are exposing the financial military parade that is about to leave the West bankrupt. It is Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026. And the most important news of the day is not the price of gold. It isn't the employment numbers. It isn't the Federal Reserve minutes. It is an article that was just published in Qiushi, the flagship theory journal of the Chinese Communist Party. Now, I know what you're thinking. Veiled wealth. Why do I care about a communist magazine? You care because this isn't a blog post. This is the voice of President Xi Jinping himself. And he didn't write this article to talk about philosophy. He wrote it to give a marching order to the People's Bank of China. He wrote it to declare the start of the financial endgame. In this article, President Xi explicitly states that China must build a powerful currency to challenge the dominance of the US dollar. He calls for the acceleration of the Yuan's internationalization. But he goes further. He links the strength of the currency directly to the nation's financial security. He is telling the world, in no uncertain terms, that the era of the dollar hegemony is over and the era of the asset-backed yuan is about to begin. This is the signal we have been waiting for. This is the green light for the nuclear option. You have to understand the timing. Why publish this now? Why release this order less than 24 hours after the US banks smashed the price of gold and silver? Because Beijing knows the US is vulnerable. They know that paper smash was a desperate attempt to defend the dollar. So they are countering it with the one weapon the US cannot defend against: truth. The United States defends its currency with debt, derivatives, and aircraft carriers. China is preparing to defend its currency with hard assets. Intelligence reports are flooding in that this Qiushi article is the precursor to a massive announcement. We are hearing rumors, credible rumors from deep within the Shanghai financial district that China is preparing to officially update its gold reserve numbers. For years, the official number has been a joke. They report adding maybe 27 tons a month. But here at Veiled Wealth, we track the flow. We track the imports through Hong Kong. We track the mine production. The real number is likely 10 times higher. They have been hiding thousands of tons of gold in off-balance sheet accounts under the state administration of foreign exchange and the military. They have been accumulating in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal their hand. And that moment is now. Imagine the scene. The US markets are in chaos. The national debt is $38 trillion. Confidence is shaken. And suddenly, China holds a press conference. They don't roll out tanks. They don't launch missiles. They simply update a spreadsheet. They announce that instead of 2,000 tons of gold, they actually hold 30,000 tons. They announce that the yuan is now backed by more physical metal than any currency in history. What happens to the US dollar in that second? It collapses. What happens to the price of gold? It teleports. It goes from $4,900 to $10,000 overnight. Because the market suddenly realizes that the price was being suppressed by a bankrupt entity, the US, while the value was being hoarded by a solvent one China. This is the financial military parade. Just like when they roll the hypersonic missiles down Tiananmen Square to show the world their power. This gold reveal is designed to show the world their financial sovereignty. It is a warning shot to Washington. You can smash the paper price all you want. We have the physical metal. Checkmate. But do not be distracted by the noise. The paper smash was a smoke grenade. The real army is moving in the background. But there is a specific mechanism that is driving this flow. There is a mathematical reason why the Western vaults are bleeding dry right now. We need to talk about David Jensen. We need to talk about the Shanghai arbitrage. David Jensen is one of the few analysts who actually tracks the plumbing of the silver market, the physical movement of bars rather than the paper movement of contracts. And he just dropped a statistic that should be flashing red on every trading desk in London and New York. He has identified a vacuum so powerful that it is sucking the physical inventory out of the West at a rate that is mathematically unsustainable. We are talking about the price gap. Right now, as we speak, the price of silver on the Shanghai Gold Exchange is trading at a massive premium over the price in London and New York. The paper smash in the US drove the price down to the mid-80s. But in China, the price didn't blink. The premium the extra amount Chinese buyers are willing to pay just to get their hands on the metal is currently hovering around 29%. That is roughly $22.98 per ounce above the Western spot price. But wait, it gets worse for the Comex. Because to get that metal into the Chinese market, you have to account for the value-added tax, VAT. When you add the 13% VAT to the premium, the replacement cost, the actual price commanded by silver inside the Chinese border is staggering. It is trading at $36.22 above the Western price. $36. That is the gap. That is the spread. Now, let's look at the logistics. How much does it cost to rent a secure armored plane, insure the cargo, and fly a ton of silver from London to Shanghai? Roughly $2 per ounce. Maybe $2.50 if you want express delivery. So do the math. Profit equals the spread minus the shipping cost. $36 minus $2. That leaves a $34 risk-free profit for every single ounce of silver you move from west to east. Do you understand what this means? In the financial world, this is called free money. It is an infinite money glitch. If you are a bullion bank or a trading house or a miner, why on earth would you sell your silver in New York for $86? Why would you sell it in London? You wouldn't. You would load it onto a pallet. You would put it on a plane. You would fly it to Shanghai. And you would sell it for $120. You make an instant 40% return on a flight that takes 12 hours. There is no better trade in the world right now. And this is the vacuum. Water flows downhill. Capital flows to the highest return. And silver flows to the highest bidder. Right now, China is the highest bidder by a mile. They are effectively paying a $34 bounty on every ounce of silver in the world. They are saying, bring it to us. Drain your vaults. Empty your ETFs. We will pay you. And the Western banks? They are taking the bait. They are arbitrageurs. They don't care about national security. They care about quarterly bonuses. So they are draining the LBMA vaults in London. They are draining the Comex vaults in New York. They are stripping the West of its strategic industrial stockpile just to capture that spread. Every day that this spread exists, thousands of bars are leaving the ecosystem of the US dollar and entering the ecosystem of the renminbi. Once that silver crosses the border into China, it never comes back. China does not export silver. They are a black hole for metal. It goes in, and it stays there to build solar panels, missiles, and the powerful currency that Xi Jinping ordered. This is why the paper smash was a catastrophic strategic error by the United States. By smashing the US price to $83 or $86, they made the arbitrage wider. They made it more profitable to ship metal to China. They effectively put their own inventory on a clearance sale for their biggest rival. They thought they were saving the dollar by painting a scary chart. In reality, they were subsidizing the Chinese accumulation. They are selling the family farm to pay the credit card bill. The US government knows this. They aren't stupid. They have satellites. They can see the planes taking off. They know that if this vacuum continues for another month, there will be 0 registered silver left in the Comex. They know they are facing a physical default. And that is why panic is setting in Washington, D.C. That is why, all of a sudden, the Secretary of State is holding an emergency meeting about critical minerals. We need to talk about Marco Rubio. We need to talk about the emergency summit happening tomorrow. While the bankers in London are counting their $34 arbitrage profits, the mood in Washington, D.C. has shifted from arrogance to absolute terror. The United States government has realized perhaps too late that they have been outplayed. They thought they could control the world with paper contracts. They forgot that you cannot build a cruise missile with paper. You cannot build a microchip with a futures contract. You need the metal. And right now, the metal is leaving. This is why if you look at the State Department's calendar for tomorrow, Wednesday, February 4th, 2026, you will see an event that looks boring on the surface, but is actually the most desperate diplomatic maneuver of the century. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is hosting the inaugural Critical Minerals Ministerial in Washington. He has summoned the ambassadors and trade ministers from Europe, Japan, South Korea, Canada, and Australia. The official press release says the goal is to strengthen and diversify critical mineral supply chains to ensure economic resilience. That is diplomatic code. Let me translate it for you. It means China is taking everything. Help us. They are trying to form a NATO for metals. They are trying to build a blockade of Pax Silica to stop the Chinese vacuum from sucking up the remaining resources of the Western Alliance. Because they have looked at the same data David Jensen looked at. They see the $34 gap, and they know that silver is not just a monetary metal anymore. It is the new oil. It is the strategic mineral of the 21st century. You cannot have a green energy transition without silver. Solar panels are made of silver. You cannot have an AI revolution without silver. High-end chips require silver interconnects. You cannot have a modern military without silver. Every Tomahawk missile, every F-35 fighter jet, every satellite uses ounces of the stuff. And right now, the United States consumes 5 times more silver than it produces. We are dependent on imports. We are dependent on Mexico, on Peru, on the global market. And China is currently buying that global market out from under us with a 29% premium. Rubio knows that if this continues, if the Comex runs dry by March as the math suggests, the U.S. military-industrial complex grinds to a halt. Lockheed Martin calls the Pentagon and says, "We can't build the guidance systems because we can't get the silver paste." That is a national security nightmare. So this meeting tomorrow is not a trade summit. It is a war council. They are going to try to strong-arm the allies. They're going to try to pass agreements that restrict the export of critical minerals to non-market economies. That means China. They're going to try to ban the arbitrage trade. They might even float the idea of capital controls on strategic metals. You can't ship silver to Shanghai because it is a matter of national defense. But here is the problem. It is too little, too late. You cannot legislate away the laws of economics. You cannot stop the flow of water with a piece of paper. As long as the price in Shanghai is $36 higher than the price in New York, the metal will find a way. Smugglers will move it. Third-party nations will buy it from the US and resell it to China. The black market will fill the gap. The only way to stop the drain, the only way is for the Western price to rise. The price in New York has to go up to match the price in Shanghai. The $86 suppression scheme has to end. The US has to let silver go to $120 just to keep it inside the country. This meeting is an admission of defeat. It is the US government admitting that the free market, which they claim to love, is currently destroying them because they manipulated the price too low for too long. They suppressed the beach ball under the water, and now it is popping up and hitting them in the face. This leads us to the inevitable price reaction. Because the market is smarter than the government. The market sees the trucks leaving. The market sees the planes taking off. And that is why the price is already bouncing. That is why the crash failed. We need to look at the chart today. Yesterday, they threw the kitchen sink at the market. They used the Kevin Warsh announcement. They used the deflation narrative. They used billions of dollars of paper shorts to smash the price of silver to $83. It was a shock and awe campaign designed to break your spirit. It was designed to make you capitulate. And usually, after a smash like that, the market stays down for weeks. It licks its wounds. The bulls get scared. But look at the screen today. It is Tuesday. The sun is up. And where's the price? Is it languishing at $83? Is it crashing further? No. Silver has ripped back above $86. Gold has jumped back above $4,900. The Warsh crash lasted less than 24 hours. They fired their biggest cannon. And the market just shrugged it off and kept climbing. This is a massive psychological signal. It tells us that the dip buyers are now stronger than the paper sellers. It tells us that the market has realized the truth. The crash was fake. The traders looked at the Shanghai price, which never crashed, by the way, and they realized that the drop in New York was just a gift. They saw the $34 arbitrage gap we just talked about. And they realized that silver at $83 was mispriced. So they bought it with both hands. This is the definition of a failed suppression. And in technical analysis, a failed move leads to a fast move in the opposite direction. When you try to hold a beach ball underwater and you lose your grip, it doesn't just float up gently. It rockets out of the water. We are witnessing the rocket phase. The shorts, the entities that sold yesterday hoping to drive the price to $70 are now trapped. They sold at the bottom. Now the price is $86. They are underwater. And as the price ticks higher to $87, to $90, they will be forced to cover. They will be forced to become buyers. This is the fuel for the short squeeze. The Warsh shock was supposed to kill the bull market. Instead, it confirmed it. It proved that even with the entire weight of the US government and the banking cartel pushing down, they cannot keep silver below $85 for more than a day. That is a hard floor. That is concrete. And if $85 is the floor, then the ceiling is infinity. We need to give you the final veiled wealth verdict. We need to tell you exactly what to do before the financial military parade begins. We have connected the dots. We have seen the signal from President Xi calling for a powerful currency. We have seen the vacuum created by the $34 arbitrage gap that is draining the West. We have seen the panic in Washington as Secretary Rubio tries to build a NATO for metals to stop the bleeding. And we have seen the recovery of the price back above $86, proving that the market psychology is unbreakable. The conclusion is simple and terrifying for anyone holding US dollars. The United States played its final card yesterday. They used the Warsh narrative and a massive paper dump to try and break the silver market. They wanted to scare you. They wanted to crush the price. They wanted to save the dollar. But all they accomplished was putting the world's most strategic asset on a clearance sale for their enemies. The US smashed the paper price. China said, "Thank you." And then China backed up the truck and bought the physical dip. Now, the vaults in New York and London are emptying at record speed. The river of silver is flowing east, and it is never coming back. The U.S. State Department is holding emergency meetings because they know what comes next. They know that by March, if this flow continues, the Comex will be a hollow shell. This means that the price of silver in the West has only two places to go. Option 1. It goes to zero because there is no metal left to trade. Option 2. It goes to $120 to match the price in Shanghai. The $34 gap is a law of nature. It must close, and it will not close by Shanghai coming down. It will close by New York going up. The suppression has failed. The dam is breaking. So this is your second chance. The Warsh crash gave you a brief window to buy silver at a discount subsidized by the stupidity of the central planners. Do not waste it. Do not let the volatility shake you out. The squeeze is not over. It is just beginning. The financial military parade is about to start. And you want to be holding the asset that is sitting on the lead float. Ignore the paper. Trust the flow. The East is buying. The West is panicking. The price is rising. The squeeze is alive. This is veiled wealth. Checkmate. Buy the dip.